It's the 27th of May and I'm Tom Glasson. Welcome to The Roast. Now, with Rogerson's arrest today, it is a sterling reminder. If your last name is Rogerson, do not call your son Roger. Unless he's a superhero, which obviously this one is not. Tonight, the media distastefully reports on tragedy and Bronwyn Bishop is accused of impartiality. Hang on, Peter Parker, Bruce Banner, Bronwyn Bishop. Okay, this is totally going to work. Her mutant power is deflecting claims of bias and also immortality. First though, Mark Humphries has the headlines.
We begin with an update on the federal budget, or as uni students call it, shame! It's been 2 weeks since the launch of the budget, and today coalition backbenchers had their chance to tell Tony Abbott how it's being received around the country. I'll give you a clue. Shithouse. National Party Senator Ron Boswell, seen here buying ingredients for the world's worst milkshake, was confident he could sell the budget 2 weeks ago.
I'm a great salesman. First I sold insurance, then I sold garbage bins and paintbrushes. Now I'm insuring. Now I can sell the budget.
And how'd you go selling that budget, Boz?
We're trying to sell it, but it is it's hard going.
Maybe stick to garbage bins. Labor Senator John Faulkner, whose face is co-owned by Specsavers, has accused the Department of Parliamentary Services of using CCTV cameras to spy on him.
A serious breach that a senator in this parliament is being spied on. No one in this place is ever going to accept that.
And if he ever finds out Parliament Question Time gets broadcast on TV, he's going to be pissed. But I tell you what, if they are going to spy on senators, I know one guy they should be keeping an eye on. Fire in the hole! Clive Palmer arrived at Parliament House in a Rolls-Royce today in an effort to shake off that fat cat image. And he had a message for other MPs.
Yeah, members of Parliament really don't need Comcars. It costs the taxpayers a lot of money, and that money could be better spent giving it to pensioners.
Only Clive Palmer could get out of a Rolls-Royce and make you feel like you're not doing enough for pensioners. Asked whether showing up in a Rolls is ostentatious, Palmer had these words of wisdom.
Well, the Constitution of Australia says that all Australians, regardless of their race, nature and wealth or whatever, can be members of Parliament.
Ah yes, who could forget those immortal words inscribed on the document that is the basis of our country. All Australians, regardless of their race, nature and wealth or whatever, can be members of Parliament. For The Roast, I'm Mark Humphries.
Thank you, Mark. Well, next up, disgraced New South Wales cop Rogerson has been arrested today over an alleged murder. And just because Rogerson is back in the news, it does not mean you have time travelled back to the 1980s. Sadly, Chico rolls cost more than 70 cents and you can't smoke on planes. Although women are still being paid less. So that's good news there for men, bad news for women who want to buy a Chico roll. Rogerson's most recent arrest is making big national news, as seen in Sydney's The Daily Telegraph, a newspaper that is heavy on the paper, light on the news. And the Daily Telegraph has a long history of being tough on crime, having previously employed Rogerson to live blog the TV crime series Underbelly. Sorry, that was a typo there. I meant tough stance on crime drama. But it raises a serious question. If you're in the media, how do you decide if a murder is a terrible tragedy or a fun little chance to remember TV shows from the 90s? Thankfully, Jazz Twemlow has put together this handy guide.
It's pretty much the standard response these days. If anyone gets killed, naturally you have to graphically display their body on the front page. Otherwise, people will believe you're making a crime up and that newspapers are therefore some sort of serialised novel. If you're thinking it's purely for journalism's sake and not just morbid clickbait, you have to wonder why stories like this often appear next to articles about some randoms having pre-sex on a beach and Kate Middleton's buttocks. So if you're a newspaper and any tragic story breaks, you need to get clicks. And so I'd recommend using this template. First, disrespect all relatives by slapping a graphic image on the front page of the deceased person, both to reassure the public and remind the family that someone has definitely died. Second, think of a pun title. Scientific studies have proven that puns engage the no area of the brain whatsoever, and so by disengaging the entire brain, you're able to read on. Third, scour the internet for the most attractive photo of the victim, because we feel more sorry for victims who are photogenic. Fourthly, if the accused is a colourful character with a storied past, make sure you dip into the archives to rehash all the stories you've already seen in every newspaper and miniseries. Or if they're a new killer, make sure you dig up their repugnant manifesto and publish it in its entirety. It'll help inspire more psycho killers, giving you something to report in the future. Also, something to read on the train, isn't it? And finally, surround your graphic crime scene photos with stories about wobbling beach boobies to lighten things up a bit. Because while you came for the sensationalised stories about death, you'll stay for the galleries of celebrity side boob. So by simply following those easy to learn, easy to make money from steps, you're now ready to get out there and cover that news, journalists. For The Roast, I'm Jazz Twemlow.
Thank you, Jazz. I'm sure they'll appreciate you calling them journalists. But the glorification of crime and its perpetrators is nothing new in Australia. It's a tradition that goes all the way back to my great-great-grandfather, Tom Mad Cat Glasson, whose only crime was stealing a loaf of bread and stabbing an entire orphanage. But it didn't end with Mad Cat and his stabby ways, because we continue to celebrate criminals in TV series, children's books, and even public appearances. As today, before his arrest, Rogerson was in Brisbane for a speaking tour. So the events would have come as a blow to lovers of Australian rogues who like their criminals a little less in the news, a little more starring Eric Bana.
Please be seated.
Wait, so who is this guy again?
Are you kidding me? You've never heard of Rogerson? No. The Dodger. Disgraced former detective? He went to jail.
Ladies and gentlemen, I regret to inform you that tonight's show has been cancelled as Rogerson has been arrested for an alleged murder.
Was that a killing from the 80s?
No, from 3 days ago.
Oh, that's awful.
I knew we should have gone to the Lion King.
It's not my fault. I only wanted to hear about crimes from 30 years ago.
I wonder whether the headliner getting arrested is legitimate grounds for a refund. Although, at least if Rogerson is convicted of this crime, it would set him up for a few more years on the talking circuit. Because you know the saying, tragedy plus time equals cashing in on tragedy. We'll be right back.
Have you ever published photos of a murder victim without thinking about their family and friends who might see that photo? When did you lose the ability to empathise? Do you feel anything anymore? We'd love to hear about it at The Roast TV or #RoastTV.
Finally tonight, Bronwyn Bishop, the Speaker of the House and headmistress from your kindergarten, has been rebuked by Labor for using her private parliamentary suite to host Liberal Party fundraisers. Still, it is her office, so surely she can do whatever she wants with it.
The Speaker's office is meant to be owned by the Parliament. It is not a venue for hire.
Oh, I'm sorry, my mistake. Parliament owns her office. That's government property.
The Parliament is not owned by the government of the day, it's owned by the people.
Oh, I'm sorry, my mistake. It's our property. But you know what, Ms Bishop? You can still host a party there if you'd like. Just keep the noise down, serve non-alcoholic punch, and make sure no boys try to close dance with you. But what's Bishop's defence?
The House practice makes clear that members can use their suites for whatever purposes they see fit.
Whatever purposes they see fit? What the hell's going on in there? Yeah, that's it. Still, regardless of whether or not she's using that office to harvest precious ivory, what was happening outside the office has caused even more controversy. Alex Lee has more.
An MP for the last 27 years, Bronwyn Bishop is a crusted-on barnacle on the good ship Parliament. But in the past 7 months alone, she seems to be steering it into stormy waters. And that's why you don't make barnacles captain. Bronwyn Bishop took to the speakership in November last year, pledging to restore decorum to the House and made a solemn promise.
In this chair, I will act impartially.
And then broke that promise almost immediately when she allowed Christopher Pyne to use the term electricity bill shorten.
He was not actually addressing a member by any title, he was merely using a description, and I do not find the term unparliamentary. The Leader of Government...
Hear that? That's the sweet sound of decorum. She then clashed with Tony Burke, who's like a kid who hates his new stepmother, and Bronwyn Bishop is like an awful stepmother who clearly favours her own kids over her new ones.
Coming from somebody who called me a witch, I find that extraordinary.
And let's be clear, he didn't call her a witch, he called her Dolores Umbridge, after the Harry Potter character. Which is an unfair comparison because Dolores Umbridge never tried to ban laughter, she just tortured kids. Bronwyn, on the other hand.
We seem to have a new tactic of having an outburst of infectious laughter.
She then followed that up by announcing that she was running for Mayor of Footloose before kicking out another Labor MP to reach an historic milestone.
Madam Speaker, you do recognise that is 100 people from this side of the House and no one from the other side of the House in the time you've been Speaker.
Meaning Bishop has kicked more Labor MPs out of Parliament than voters did at the last election. In reply, Bishop started serving up zingers like a kid working at KFC.
If you had 100 members, you'd be in government and sitting on this side.
But to be fair, if she was really trying to punish Labor, she'd force them to stay in Parliament. So Labor just finally came out and called her the most biased Speaker in the history of Parliament. But is she? After Bill Shorten's budget reply speech, Ms Bishop could have stood up, forcing the applauding opposition members to fall silent. But she didn't, at least not until Christopher Pyne indicated for her to do so. So if you ask me, she's got to be one of the most biased...
Desist.
Desist? Oh, Madam Speaker.
If you don't know the meaning of it, look it up.
Yeah, I'll show myself out.
I don't feel too bad, Alex. At least the parliamentary sin bin is full of Labor people that you can chat with. You know, I can't help but feel, though, that Labor might find Ms Bishop more appealing in the role if her job description involved a little less speaking and a little more singing.
Speaker of the House, doling out the charm, ready with an handshake and an open palm. Gonna come down hard on Labor. Doesn't cost me to be nice, but nothing gets you nothing. Everything has got a little price. Now shut up!